Hey, what's up, guys? Blaine and Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, joined, as always, by my brother, Austin. Dude, welcome to episode 60. And it couldn't be more special than just being episode 60, except for the fact that we've got some awesome news that we're going to be talking about tonight. This could be a little bit of a shorter episode, but we're going to talk about the fact that we got some amazing news this last week regarding the television show that we're going to be getting from the franchise. How awesome is it that we're a weekly podcast and we get to talk about this until this show is made, that every single week we're going to probably have some sort of update, especially once we get into filming. That's going to be awesome, right?
Dude, and here's what I got to say to the good people at Miramax, to the good people at Trancas International. Release the news not on a Friday. This news came out the day we dropped our last episode, and I'm like, Blaine, why are we always late to this news? But regardless, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk to it. But come on, guys, set us up in the early weeks so we can make a podcast about it.
We even talked about, like, man, do we do like a special, like, quick, like, live episode or something? And it's like, whatever. We'll just, people are going to want to hear things about this. And we're going to, for those of you who don't know a whole lot about it, we're going to tell you a little bit more about it here shortly. But I am legit so excited because we have confirmation of what is going to be coming down the pipeline. Now, what's really interesting is trying to figure out when exactly this show is going to come out. We're at the point where, you know, if they started filming here in the next 3 months, let's say, there is a slight chance we could get it this fall. I'm going to guess very unlikely. I would suspect we're probably not going to be seeing this show until a year from now, you know, maybe something like that, 12, 14 months, something like that. But it would be pretty awesome if we had a Halloween TV show that we'd be getting this fall. I mean, that'd be pretty sweet. So I do want to read this article real quick because, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this have already read it, but this is directly from Fangoria. I'm gonna read just a part of the article. So it says, back in October of last year, it was announced that after a heated bidding war with genre titans A24, Miramax and Trancas International Films had secured the TV rights to the Halloween franchise. And today, this was last Friday, Miramax's head of worldwide television, Mark Helwig, brings us to some intriguing updates. Speaking with Deadline, Helwig reveals that the Halloween television series will be taking things back to the start, spinning off of John Carpenter's 1978 original rather than David Gordon Green's and Blumhouse's recent reboot trilogy. And then this is a quote: "The foundation of it is the original film, the John Carpenter movie, the characters of that film, and perhaps a group of characters that we haven't really focused on that much in recent film versions or even in a number of them. It's a creative reset completely and going back to the original film as opposed to spinning out any of the more recent film adaptations." And then it goes on just a little bit more. It may be too, and this is not the quote anymore, but it may be too soon to start speculating just yet, though, as Helwig reveals that the foundations of the show are still coming together behind the scenes. We're back to another quote from this Mark Helwig. "We're on a fast track. It's a big priority for us. We've had lots of exciting conversations in recent months with a number of really talented people, and I think we'll have a pretty good idea of what we're going to be doing very soon. We're hoping to lock down the creative team very soon." So, dude, this is happening. It's not like it's not like it's, could we be getting this? This is happening. Miramax is clearly making this a priority for them, and the fact that they're doing stuff behind the scenes at this capacity, getting those creative teams together. I'm sure they're getting writers together and they're doing these groups and kind of brainstorming with what this looks like. But that is awesome. It's awesome.
It's just wild to have real Halloween news, not a speculation, not a theory. We are talking about actual information about the next time we're going to see Michael Myers on the big screen, or in this case, the small screen. I'm super pumped. I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I'm excited to dig into it with you here. What kind of struck you initially? What was your first kind of take when you heard that quote?
I think the biggest thing for me was that they're really going back or focusing on that original storyline and of 1970. At least that's kind of what it sounds like. Maybe not necessarily spinning off of that directly, but they're going back to that direct storyline from the original film, which sort of leads me to believe we might get something that we've sort of discussed, like the Loomis story, the Loomis angle, because that is obviously a direct tie-in to that 1978 film. But I mean, talking about it, I would have to read the quote again, but like it talks about the characters that and perhaps a group of characters that we haven't really focused on that much in recent film versions. Like, I don't know what that means necessarily.
Dude, I think when we were theorizing on what it might be, and you talked about Tommy Wallace and Tommy
Doyle, Lindsay Wallace. Yeah.
Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace.
Yeah.
I to me, that's what jumped out as like, oh, Blaine might have called this before it even started. But totally agree that could be a Loomis thing too.
Right.
I'm interested to see if the creative reset back to the original film means what you were just kind of hinting at is like, is this a sequel to 1978, similar to what we got with Halloween 2018? Or is this, more so like we're going back to the original film as like what we're building out here? I don't know if it's going to be a reboot or a sequel, time will tell. I do kind of hope it's more reboot just because we already have several timelines now that now go back to the original film. I saw a tweet online that the Halloween timeline is going to look like a Chicago bus or Chicago train track.
Yeah, sure.
After all this is done.
Yeah, no. Well, and that's, I mean, it's kind of true. Like it's sort of a choose your own adventure thing, which is what we've talked about, right? I mean, it's like, what do you want to know about Michael? Do you want to know nothing? Then you go down this avenue. You want to know this backstory? Go down this avenue. You want way more information on what he was like as a kid? Well, here we got these two films for you that really detail that. So yeah, and that aspect, it is. It's just like a choose your own adventure thing. I personally like, going back to that, Tommy Doyle, Lindsay Wallace thing. I would, if you had to compare that story, right? Kind of what I talked about, like here, let's reintroduce Tommy and Lindsay. They're in high school, college, whatever it might be, but it's that later teens, early 20s, whatever that might be. And we're reintroducing these characters into this franchise. And like I said, like maybe Tommy moved away and he comes back, or Lindsay moved away and she comes back to Haddonfield, and they reconnect. And then they sort of reflect on the events that happened to them in 1978, whatever that might be. Like if you have that story, or you have like the prequel, meaning 1963 to 1978, and those 15 years in between. I personally, for me, I want to see the Lindsay and Tommy story first, or that would be my preference. I think the Sam Loomis thing would be really cool, the Dr. Loomis thing. But I think what I would struggle with mostly is that Donald Pleasance is not Sam Loomis, right? And They would have to bring in a whole new actor. And that would be just tough to sort of wrap my mind around. But you could do it with Lindsay and Tommy. You could realistically just find two, teenage quote unquote, kids or young adults. And we have no idea what they really would have looked like at that time. So your imagination, I think, at least in my mind, would be able to run a little bit more with that versus like the Sam Loomis character, and he's 15 years younger than what he was in 1978. And, whatever. There would be ways to do it. I just think it would be much more difficult to sell that to some of our harder, like more hardcore fans, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But what would you rather see? Like, would you rather see the Lindsay Tommy storyline, or would you rather see Loomis?
I think, as interesting as the Loomis series is, and we've talked about how cool that would have the potential of being, what I don't want is Michael to be a character that's in the background. And, the thing that makes me not so much worried about that is that starting quote that the foundation of the original film, the John Carpenter movie, the characters of that film, and perhaps a group of characters that we haven't really focused on that much. That's what makes me feel good that we are going to get old school classic Michael Myers,
Right.
Which, there is still an opportunity to do a Loomis centric show featuring the Michael Myers we all know. But the ideas that we've talked about, kind of young Michael and that build up into that process, I would worry that Michael would become kind of a young Sheldon, and I don't want young Michael.
Yeah.
It's not for me. So for me, yeah, absolutely. The two kids, Lindsay and Tommy, growing up, I think that there is some unexplored territory there that I would not at all mind seeing. But this makes me think, kind of like what we talked about before, I think we're going to get Laurie Strode. I think Laurie Strode is making a comeback, whether we want it or not. And I think, you know what, the casual fan of Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise probably is going to go, well, where's Laurie Strode?
Right. I don't want it. I don't want it. I hope, like, honestly, to be like totally straight up honest with you, I would rather not get this than have like a Laurie Strode. And there might be people who are like, you're not a real Halloween fan. Yes, I am. I promise you I am. I have a weekly podcast about this entire franchise. I promise you I'm a big Halloween fan. But we've just done the Laurie thing, right? The Laurie thing has been done. They've beaten it to death. And once again, I think it would just be really difficult to take just a brand new actress and say, hey, you're going to play young Laurie Strode. And, maybe it's the events after Halloween 1978 and up through the following years, whatever that might be. Cool. Like, that would be cool. Like, I would love to see that setting, like, take this story back to the late 70s, early 80s. But I don't want to see Laurie Strode again. I really don't. But
it's interesting looking at the fan or just the casual reception to this, because obviously this isn't just Halloween community news. This was news that was shared kind of throughout entertainment world. And it was interesting to look at the average person's response to this. And a lot of people are like, give it a rest already.
Right.
And, part of me understands that thought process. What I'll say about the TV show side of it is similar to the Exorcist TV show that we got probably 5, 6, 7 years ago now, how it really doesn't have much to do with, obviously what ended up happening with the franchise Exorcist Believer, right. which will make you not a believer in modern cinema. But
still haven't seen
it. I've seen it and it's like net zero. I haven't changed or lost anything from it. It was completely useless. But similar to that, where like we're kind of at the same time giving it a rest as we are diving into this thing. I think this series provides fans like you and I something to talk about, something to wet the palate while you wait for what I'm going to say is probably the next like true Halloween experience. I think it's a very realistic possibility unless they knock this out of the park. And I think we've talked about the Scream series being something that, was cemented and was something that became a show that did build into the series. I really hope we get that, but I could absolutely see 20 years from now when we're talking about the Halloween franchise as a whole, it could be looked back on similar to the Friday the 13th series of long ago. It's something nice. It's something fun. I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm really interested to see what they do. And Lord knows on this channel, you can expect episode breakdowns. You can expect, every little nitty gritty detail being pulled out of this thing. And Lord help this channel once we get a trailer or anything like that. But it is really exciting news.
It's huge news. I mean, realistically, it's the biggest Halloween news. Yes, we got the announcement last October, but it's really the biggest news that we've had since at least probably something along the lines of Ends coming out or the trailer dropping for Ends or anything like that. So I'm extremely excited to have this podcast, to have already established a baseline of people who watch and listen to this show. and to keep growing this channel, because this is going to be an extremely exciting time. Outside of going back to 2015 or 2016, whatever it was, when they announced that they were making another Halloween film and that Jamie Lee Curtis would be, joining this project, or joining the David Gordon Green project again, or for the first time, I guess I should say, joining that project. That was huge. I wish we would have had this podcast back then, because we could have talked about all 3 films as they were coming out, all the news, all the stuff. You and I have talked about that, but we got our second chance, and that's what's going on right now. We're going to get more Michael Myers. Halloween is going to live, which is exactly what this podcast is about, and we are going to be able to walk through that step by step. And like you said, trailers, trailer breakdowns, episode breakdowns, all that exciting news, and will probably, quite honestly, you will see a lot more content being provided to you on this channel. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball this week, just because it kind of took us by surprise, quite honestly. We weren't expecting this news. So, and like Austin said, it was dropped last Friday when we had just put out our new episode. We weren't available to do an episode right then and there. So, but I think we are going to really try to stay up on this as much as possible. Might be just you, might be just me, might be both of us together. But as news continues to break and come out, we're going to do some of these sort of breakdowns and talk about rumors and things that we're hearing about this, because this is just a really exciting time for true Halloween fans, and quite honestly, horror fans in general. This is, in my opinion, and in your opinion, I know it's the greatest franchise in horror history. So for horror fans to be able to have TV shows like this, whether it's Bates Motel, The Exorcist, the Crystal Lake series, Halloween, whatever it is, to be able to get horror onto the silver screen is really cool, because it's obviously dominated for a long time in the box office, and you see Netflix and whatever. I mean, everybody's got horror movies these days, but we haven't had a ton of that on the silver screen in this sort of this TV reality, or this TV world. So it's going to be awesome. It's going to be super cool. I can't wait to hear, like, what I want to hear is, I want to hear from Malik Akkad. I want to hear I want to hear something announced from him of, this is what we're going to get. And once we get sort of the premise of the story, dude, that's what I'm going to be like, holy shit, this is happening, and obviously once we're going to get news on, like, they're going to be casting news and things like that. Like, there's going to be leaks. There's going to be things that come out, Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now. Like, there's going to be things that leak, and we're going to break all that shit down on this channel, because that's what we do. And it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. I think, like, realistically, if I was to guess, like, the next piece of Halloween news, I'm going to guess we're going to see some crew announcements. First and foremost, we're going to kind of figure out who's the main producer on the show, who's I would imagine they have maybe multiple directors throughout the show who's writing it and things like that. But it sounds like they're on the fast track. It's a big priority for them. So that's the kind of, those conversations are happening right now. I would imagine in a month, 2-3 months, we're going to be talking about casting information, and that's when it's going to get really exciting, especially, if they're releasing any sort of character names, anything like that. It'll be interesting to see. As soon as you see, like, a Laurie Strode show up, or a Tommy Doyle, if you get, like, a Tommy Doyle who's 15, 16 years old, you have a really good clue of what this show is going to be like. And so I'm looking forward to that information. And there's going to be a whole slew of speculation, and I can't wait till this show is out and we look back on, like, episodes like this and go, oh God, we had it so wrong. But it really is, we started this podcast, Halloween Lives, because Halloween had just ended, and it was kind of like, well, we're going to keep it going in the meantime. The meantime was a little over a year before there was news. So, it came quicker than we expected, but I'm super pumped about it.
I am too. And, talking about, like, the fast track thing, like, in my mind, I ask myself, why fast track it? What are they trying to accomplish by fast tracking it? And that, in my mind, is a key piece of information that we might see it this fall. Like, there's a chance we get the Halloween and they, quite honestly, since we haven't heard a whole lot about, like, the Crystal Lake series, they may try to one up
That was my thought.
Yeah, dude. And maybe they're trying, and I don't know when the Crystal Lake series is supposed to come out. But they may be going, we have a prime opportunity here to set the bar for this. Let's set the freaking bar, and that would be cool.
And that was part of my thought too with the fast track thing is obviously this Crystal Lake series has been something that's been built up for a couple of years now. And there is going to come a point, just like when Halloween and Friday the 13th dropped the original films, who's copying who at this point, right. What's, and those, that same war of the 80s. I mean, we could be looking at a new golden age for horror movies. Give me a Friday or a Freddy Krueger series while we're at it. I want to be all the way back into it. And like I said, have that new golden era.
It's a great time to be a horror fan, no matter what.
Yeah.
It's a great time to be. So I'm just real quick on the fly here. I'm kind of looking up when the Crystal Lake TV series is supposed to come out, and all it says right now is sometime in 2024. So, once again, there could be that. Hey, the iron is hot. We're coming off of Halloween Ends. It's only been a year, really, a little over a year and 3-4 months. The irons are still hot. The iron is still hot. Let's take advantage of this and let's ride the coattails of that. And if they play their cards right, they're going to bring in a whole new generation of Halloween fans. And then they can reintroduce those Halloween fans into a new film, a new storyline, whatever that might be. 2-3 years down the road, we're going to probably see more Michael Myers. One thing that we talked about, I think we mentioned this in last week's episode, is that it's going to be harder to make Michael current day. We're not going to be able to have, unless they completely do away with the whole entire thing and they literally blow up the whole Halloween universe. And Michael Myers is just a guy, a figure at any point in time, at any, at any date and time, I guess. We're not going to see a new Michael Myers current day film in 2035. It's just not going to happen. The dude to be 80 years old. It's not going to happen. Right. But for them to do this television show, whether they focus on the events of 1978, they fast forward a little bit, whatever that looks like, or that prequel idea of doing the Dr. Loomis thing, no matter what, that is resetting the entire thing, which is exactly what this article talks about, and this Mark Helwig talked about, is resetting the entire thing. And then moving forward, they can go, okay, well, now we can return to like a film, but they're going to have to do it where it's not set present day. Like I said, unless they completely blow the whole thing up and say Michael Myers is just a guy in any present day or form, right?
Right. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I'm also interested to see if this is going to be a correction from Halloween Ends, if they're going to take some of that negative response that, Halloween Ends is the most divisive film in recent history when it comes to horror. It'll be interesting to see if they're like, okay, they didn't like it when we switched things up. We gotta take this back to formula, and how whatever that means. It'll be interesting, but obviously, that was kind of the mindset of Halloween 2018 as well. And, that's one of my favorite movies in the franchise. Anytime that they're trying to scratch John Carpenter's back and give that props, anytime they're trying to ode back to that, I'm all the way down. That's my dream.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, let Carpenter, I'm sure he never would, but let Carpenter come back and, let him do the music for it. Let him produce it. Let him, do whatever. He just released a new song this week, this past week. My name is Death, I think, My Name is Death. Dude, freaking great. And clearly it sounds like we talked about it. Like we just listened to it together the other night. It sounds like it should be something straight out of Halloween Ends or Halloween Kills. Yep. Like it's just, the guitar sounds the same. It's awesome. Just while we've been talking here, I've been kind of scrolling through and reading a few different articles, but I want to read this. So Screen Rant put out an article a few days ago, or actually it was 11 hours ago. And this is the title of it. I just want to read it real quick because it's a quick article. It says, Halloween TV show can fix a 29-year-old franchise mistake through one forgotten character. The upcoming Halloween TV show can fix the franchise's biggest mistake by bringing back one of the forgotten characters from John Carpenter's original movie. So it says Halloween may fix this, I don't know why I keep saying this over and over again, but it could fix the mistake by bringing back Dr. Wynn. Okay. Dr. Wynn's new storyline could rewrite the franchise's worst timeline, The Cult of Thorn. The show can also answer a 46-year-old plot hole about Michael Myers and his ability to drive a car. I don't really get that. But let's see. The Halloween franchise is expanded with a TV show that will go back to the original movie. And thanks to this one and often forgot about character, the show can fix one of the franchise's biggest mistakes. Back in 1979, John Carpenter brought, this is jacked up. They don't even know the year. Back in 1978, John Carpenter brought Halloween, which could become a key in the development of the slasher genre, as well as the horror classic. Halloween also made way for a franchise with 10. I don't know why I need to read this part of it. Basically, it goes on to say they could revisit the Dr. Wynn storyline, because what you saw is, Dr. Wynn was mentioned in 1978. It was mentioned in that original film, and then they revisited again in part 6, and then you get the whole Cult of Thorn thing. If they wanted to explore that would maybe another option. You could have the Loomis angle, you could have the Tommy and Lindsay thing, and then if you really wanted to do like some weird shit, you could go with the Cult of Thorn angle. I mean, that could work as well, where maybe they don't cast Sam Loomis because they can't replace Donald Pleasance,
right?
But they could recast this Dr. Wynn character, who nobody would really care who plays him, because it's more of a figure and not a face that we would recognize necessarily, right? So, I mean, that's not a bad idea. You could look at doing something like that too.
No, I actually don't mind that at all. I think there's a way to make Dr. Wynn an important character without making him this shadowy figure.
Right.
There's something to explore there for sure. And that's a very interesting take on, characters we haven't focused much on in recent films.
Right.
Very good take by Screen Rant. I'm there for it. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'd prefer it to be Tommy and Lindsay, but Dr. Wynn could be a move.
Yeah, it's exciting times to be a Halloween fan, horror fan, everything in between, or maybe you're just like a nonchalant fan of just, television or any kind of movie or TV show like this. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a great time to be alive because we're getting more Halloween. This is a very short episode. We realize that it's not nearly as long as most of our episodes are, but we really just wanted to talk about this tonight. And with the little amount of information that we have, there's only so much that we can do with it. So, but we really do. I want to hear, and I know Austin does too, we want to hear from you guys. What do you want to see? Would you rather see the Dr. Loomis thing? Do you want to see Tommy and Lindsay? Does this Dr. Wynn idea have any appeal to you whatsoever? Please let us know in the comments below. Hit us up. And shoot us messages on Instagram. We don't care. Like, let us know what you guys think, or if you have some other random idea that you're like, hey, Michael in space sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Let us know. You and John Carpenter are the only two people on the planet that would think that's a good idea, but let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, dude, that's going to wrap this episode 60. It's a short one. We apologize, but I promise you, we're going to be back with more Halloween content. If we get any more breaking news this week, I'm going to make it my personal promise that we'll get to it a lot faster than we did this stuff. We'll be on top of it. So, guys, I'm Blaine Duncan. That is my brother, Austin. It's going to do it for episode 60 of Halloween Lives, a podcast of Michael Myers. And it is a great time to be a Halloween fan. So stick around, stay tuned to Halloween Lives, because we're going to bring it all to you through this podcast. Thanks, guys.
Peace.